All right. The second sort of major theme in this movie, or the second question we want to think about, which will relate to also the other issues in this topic of human life, um, is whether there's a good reason to choose the genes of an unborn child. And from the responses that I've gotten from you in the homework, which all of you can see, it seems like for a lot of people, they would they would change the genes of an unborn child if it were to affect their health or their life in a pretty serious way, but not for things that seem sort of superficial or not very consequential. Others took a more um, sort of hard line that there's really no good reason, like let nature take its course. We'll I'm going to address those responses, or those types of responses, a little bit more after the other assignment, which is about which genes would you change specifically. I think that's a uh, better assignment to address those kinds of questions. I though wanted to talk about this other aspect of it, which is that, is choosing genes really different than other things that we do to set up our child for success? There's a lot. So some would say, oh, well, you shouldn't change things like their uh, height, or things that have to do with someone's attractiveness, for example, right? And say that's just superficial. But it's been shown statistically that people who are more attractive, people who are taller, people who have lighter skin color, you can just look at statistics, tend to be more successful, less encounters with law enforcement, more likely to get raises or promotions at work. And so, in many ways, um, they can be more successful. And in fact, so my son is off of his Zoom playdate now. So let me show you this clip right in the beginning. Oh, I don't know if this is too many people using the internet. Let's see. Oh, this is already for. Oh, oh, here we go.
You may as well decide on gender. Have you given it any thought?
We would want Vincent to have a brother, to play with.
Of course you would. Hello, Vincent. You have specified hazel eyes, dark hair, fair skin.
So I wanted to play that clip because right at that moment, the doctor, who is obviously black, says, "Oh, you specified fair skin," and then he gives this little smile, right? And I think I don't know for sure, but I think the way he says it, the way he pauses, it's supposed to be making a point there that, I mean, this doctor himself doesn't have what's considered fair skin, right? He has darker skin. Um, but he kind of understands why someone would want fair skin, or he knows that, okay, you want fair skin. And if we were to take this a little bit further, like if you were to be able to choose the race of your child, um, statistically, someone who's white versus someone who's black is less likely to have all those other things I mentioned, less likely to have encounters with law enforcement, less likely to be, even in school, less likely to get detention, um, just because of that, right? You could have two people with similar economic circumstances, social circumstances, but because of that factor, has all these other different outcomes. Um, and so, uh, if you're able to choose genes that will set up your kids for success, so that they're less likely to get in trouble with the law, or less likely to, they might have better health outcomes, um, because of these sort of superficial things, wouldn't we do it? I mean, some people would say, but changing genes, that's pretty drastic, right? Um, I mean, there's all these other things we do that don't seem drastic, set up some kids get after school activities and some don't. Some kids get extra tutoring and some don't. My kids have this privilege of being able to do sports, right? Like they do extra sports activities. A lot of kids don't have those opportunities. And arguably, you could say kids who are able to do these things or have these advantages that will help them get more success. Is changing genes really that different? It's giving them another advantage, right? So some people might think of it in that way. Like if as a parent you're willing to do all these things afterwards to help your child be successful with all these extra things that not everyone has access to, right? Not everyone has the money or privilege to provide all these extracurricular things and all these extra supports, set up a college fund. If you're willing to do all that for them to be successful, what's the difference between that and just choosing some genes, right? Um, and then there's the other side of it. It says, well, some of these things, especially if it comes to things that have to do with like attractiveness or skin color or whatever, yes, if you were to change it, maybe statistically they'd be more successful. But wouldn't it be better instead to change society so that those things aren't markers of success? So instead of making everyone white so that they'd be more successful, shouldn't we instead work on ending racism, right? Instead. So we'll get into these issues a little bit more again, like I said, after the next homework assignment where we talk about specific things that we're willing to change. But these were some of the issues that were brought up in this movie and are interesting to think about because, like I said in the first video, while the technology exists to do these things, we haven't really had a lot of civic conversations, social, ethical conversations about should we do it, to what extent, what role do these things play, what limits are we willing to draw, right? We haven't had a lot of those kinds of conversations yet. All right, so I will, the next thing a video you'll see from me will be in response to this other homework assignment about which genes you would change.